I had a successful enough trip going to the grocery store. I managed to get to the self-scan checkout, which I hate, but that was all that they had open. But I got there just before they announced they were closing, and I had just scanned like the last item in my order as I got done. So, success. So you know, I kind of wanted to. Wow, it's like seriously raining. I should have brought the other car. The other car's got all-season tires, not performance tires on it. Performance tires are great when the pavement's dry, but this one's more fun. Anyway, so I want to talk about something that's a few things, and I might get, well, I don't know if I'm going to do that. Okay, we'll talk about this. So, one of the things that I really hate about the day and age in politics that we live is the questioning of motive and the shame game that gets played. If you have a opinion different from someone else's. I'll give you a case in point example. A little over a week ago, I watched a Candace Owens video where she came out and spoke her piece about the Black Lives Matter group and about George Floyd. And for those of you that haven't watched it, I recommend you do. Highly recommend you do. So, but we'll just say that without putting words in her mouth and letting her speak for herself, she has a dissenting opinion from Black Lives Matter. And she's getting called every name in the book for it by some acquaintances of mine on social media who, well, I'm not going to try to guess their motive, basically parrot the Black Lives Matter talking points. Man, it's really coming down. I apologize for the audio quality on this one in advance. You know, we might just come back. I might just try this one another time. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, that's something that really bugs me, is that, like, okay, if you have an opinion on, say, firearms, Second Amendment, and you want to do something to curtail access to firearms, you know, whether it's magazine restrictions, magazine type, whatever, and I can come up with a logic, and I just disagree with you. You know, you don't have to come at me with logic, I don't have to come at you with logic, I just disagree. Okay? My motives are instantly suspect, or I get, you know, well, he doesn't care about the Parkland kids, or he doesn't care about this or that. The thing that's funny in most of those cases is the, oh crap, I might have to stop driving. There's a gas station up the road a bit. I'm going to see if I can make it there. It is really coming down here, folks. But anyway, how motive guessing has become the name of the game in a lot of politics, or ascribing a bad motive. Like, you know, there's more than one way to approach an issue, and just because I disagree with you doesn't mean that I don't care about children or school safety or anything like that. It just means I might have a different approach to handling the issue. But the crazy thing is that all these school shooters that have gone on, and any shooter breaks a number of laws anyway just to do that. So it just, I don't like when people have a disagreement with someone and go straight to name calling and saying that their motives are impure, that they're not really a this or a that, just because they disagree with you. You know, going wildly off the topic of any news story, the rain let up quite a bit. Going wildly off the topic of any recent news story, a lot of news narrative that happens whenever there's a mass shooting is that you've got all these politicians beholden to the NRA, and that the NRA is just buying off politicians. And okay, you can make that argument. Would you care to take a guess what the biggest donor to any political group is? And I'm not talking, you know, Democrat, Republican, but just the biggest donor to any biggest donor overall. It's unions, public and private sector, police unions, school teachers unions, private unions, you know, the Teamsters, automotive locals, fabricators, operators, you name it. Unions are it. Period. A few years back, I heard some figures that put NRA donations into perspective. That someone pulled up that the NRA had donated, you know, so many millions to the RNC or to this, that, or the other, you know. Okay. Well, someone put it into perspective, and the NRA donates like under 10% of the teachers' union. Just the teachers' union. And, you know, people talk about the NRA like it's just this big gun lobby that wants to sell guns. No, they have resources available to their members. You can take firearm safety classes through the NRA. You know, members pay a membership fee. You can get a lifetime membership, and then they will sell you getaways, retreats, firearm safety courses. They do raffles on firearms to those that can legally own firearms of that type in their state with their criminal background. They do all that stuff above board. But just because I disagree with you on how to handle an issue doesn't mean I don't care about it, and doesn't mean you get to morally castigate me just because I disagree. The thing is, firearms, there was a study out from the CDC a few years back when guns were the hot topic to discuss. There was a study out that showed that the defensive use of firearms, like someone approaching you to do you harm and you pull your weapon out and level it at them, far outweighed the death rate, not suicide rate, but death rate from guns. It was estimated that there was well over 100,000, if forget the exact figures, but some studies stated it could be up to 500,000 defensive uses of a firearm a year. Now that could be a thwarted burglary, thwarted murder, thwarted rape, thwarted robbery, you name it. And the reason why the figures on those are so hard to get is if the crime is thwarted, 99.99999% of the time, no one's calling the cops. The criminal's not going to call the cops and say, hey, I was about to rob this person and they pulled a gun on me. And the person that owned the gun isn't going to say, well, I'm going to tie up useful law enforcement time because the situation's handled. So the numbers on that are vague, but even the most conservative estimates put it at 10 times the number of interventions in firearms versus unlawful uses of firearms. So, would you really be willing to give up the good that they do in exchange for, like, what's the trade-off? You know, if you made it impossible for law-abiding citizens to get or keep firearms and ammunition, you would be trading off at minimum 85,000 instances a year, maybe more. And the thing is, it would embolden criminals because they know that there's not a gun on the other side of that door. So it irritates me when the conversation devolves to name calling, shouting, and acting like preschoolers. Just because I don't disagree with you on the pews doesn't mean I'm a stupid head. Just because I don't agree with all the Black Lives Matter narrative and what they're after doesn't mean that I don't think that racism has been a problem in America. In some cases, it still persists to be a problem in individual circumstances, and I would love to see it stamped out. The discussions that we have been the most ridiculous versions of the discussions that we're having. And it is freaking tiresome. And I don't know, like, the discussions that we're having where everyone just sits down and yells at each other and then goes to a commercial break and comes back and yells at each other some more. I don't know how much longer the majority of Americans can care about that before they just tune out and fall behind the times and don't have an informed opinion on issues. Or worse, when you have an instance like Officer Chauvin, that no one is jumping behind to defend this guy. They don't even care then because they've burnt out on all the yelling and screaming. And then another thing, like, everyone was behind Black Lives Matter 100% on the Officer Chauvin, George Floyd thing. And then everybody started looting and rioting in his name. You lost us there. You lost us there. It sucks to try to rally around something tragic, but tragedies do have a way of bringing people oddly together. Short side story, then I'll get back to what I was talking about. 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago in September of 16, my father was diagnosed with terminal stage 4 cancer. It had gone unnoticed for a number of years and had gotten very advanced by the time it was caught. And he was dead just over 3 months afterward. siblings had had a touch of a falling out. I don't know all the details. I just know that I wasn't seeing my aunts and uncles as much. I don't know all the details. That's my dad and their business. But when the effects of the cancer started making themselves more and more prevalent, and when it became more and more clear where this was going to go, there were a lot of bridges there were a lot of old wounds healed, and there was a lot of things that had gone unsaid that got said, and the air got cleared between my dad and his siblings before he died. So, tragedy has a strange way of bringing people together. And I'm not diminishing anything that happened to George Floyd. That was terrible, that was awful. But up to the point of the looting and rioting and everything, you had us 100% on board with everything you were saying, and that could have been a unifying moment. But the second that all that started, and don't get me wrong, there were peaceful protests happening during the day, and then, anarchy at night. You could have had all of America unite behind you on this, and then the second you started making excuses for it, we're like, oh, we're kind of out on this. We like, business owners being able to run their business. We like being able to go in restaurants without having to step on broken glass. We like being able to go to restaurants because they weren't burned down. Once you started making excuses for that, we were out. All of America had hunkered down together for 2-3 months. In some places it's still going on more than it is in my state. And, we had unified around stronger together, stay inside, stay alive kind of stuff. And then George Floyd happened, and that could have been a wonderfully unifying moment, and it wasn't. The last tragedy, I think, that truly unified Americans for quite a while, and don't get me wrong, there was debate on what to do from there, but was 9/11. There wasn't white, Mexican, Indian, Asian, Russian, German, European, anything. It was Americans, and they had all been attacked. They all felt attacked. And don't get me wrong, there were differing opinions on where to go from there, but for a time, Americans huddled together and grieved and mourned the loss of life, whether they knew anybody or not, but they mourned the loss of life as a nation. And this could have been that, but it wasn't. And that's tragic. Human life is precious. I know that I'm not gonna slam George Floyd. Everything I've heard, he was attempting to do better in his life, and he never got the chance to, and that's sad. But when you start making excuses for hurting people that aren't Derek Chauvin, the Minneapolis Police Department, or the 4 officers that were there, you're going to lose support and consensus rapidly. And that's what happened. So, anyway, I feel like I'm talking in circles now. I've gone on long enough. I'm almost home. So y'all stay safe. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Love to hear from you. If you want my opinion on something I hadn't talked about, I'm not shy. I will do a video on it, even if it's not something I know a lot about. I'll try to research it some. So, y'all stay safe. Thanks for tuning in. I will see y'all next time. This has been A Cruise with Smooth.